You know, where's Nina Simone when we need her to sing that song? Mississippi, 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 you know? So now, my great state here has, in the House of Representatives, a bill has been put forward, 1083. What does it do? I'll tell you what it does. It says that a school board or whatever the body is for a private school can actually choose to have armed teachers in the classroom. And, folks, you know, so let's just imagine this, and how this, you just got to imagine how it works. For those of us who are gun enthusiasts, who've been around them all our lives, and who've had a little bit of training, should I say, and sometimes a lot of training, we understand that the firearm is just a tool. And the discretion to use it is very, very great. Very great. I mean, unless you're hunting, of course. And even then, you've got to consider where the round is going to end up. I mean, if you miss the deer, you may not be the only one in the woods. The round is going to go somewhere, and anybody who is in an area that has deer hunting know exactly what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of consideration when firing your weapon. You can train. However, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes down to the actual control of the actual round you fire, you have no control. It is your wit, it is your intelligence to be able to look forward, look beyond where the round is supposed to hit. Look, and I'm going to make this simple. Now, anyone who's been well trained will tell you this. The first line of business is deciding when to shoot. Really. Just when. At what point do you shoot? In this case, a person. When you feel your life and the life of others is in danger. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen time and time again, especially in the last several years, law officers with a discretion to use the firearm which was inappropriate. And don't get me wrong, folks, it's a dangerous job for them. It is. And if it's ever a time to give the benefit of the doubt, it's then. There's no doubt in my mind. And look, I know about Philando Castile. I know about all of it. I do. You don't have to call me and remind me. I know. However, so here we are now, Mississippi. We're going to this bill, and you'll hear legislators come forward and say, yeah, well, we just want to give the schools an option if they want to do this. They already have that option. Let me just tell you this, and I'll just be brief. If in fact, be it Florida, be it Washington, D.C., you have anyone who's armed inside that school, they better be a uniformed police officer. This bill right here says that if in fact the school boards decide to even arm, let's just say a teacher or a principal or a coach, it spells out they've got to have the training and all that. I got you. But if they do arm them, the person that they're arming won't even answer to the police. In other words, the police have no veto power. How dumb can that be? I'm going to tell you why it's dumb. Because if by chance the person who is armed inside that school, if by chance that person comes under fire or is outgunned, like in the case in Parkland High School, who do you think he's going to call? The police. Look, I favor having officers. I mean, I like it. But if you're going to have any kind of policing in any school, it needs to be directly tied to law enforcement. Directly. And if by chance anyone is armed in that school, that person needs to be uniformed. Why do I say that? Well, and most officers already know this. It's to keep others from being killed. Cut down on friendly fire. Get rid of, eliminate or lessen the potential for collateral damage, and more than anything else, keeping law enforcement from killing a friendly. You don't know who's the friendly. The guy who has the gun is in the view of anyone who's watching this. When the shots start firing, I guarantee you those kids will run from a police officer like they'd run from anyone else. It's the guy shooting. I mean, I don't know why this is so difficult. And it drives me crazy when I hear some of these weak-kneed, paranoid, gun-toting idiots who have convinced you, the American public, that somehow or another the best way to have this, the best way for America is for us to be quick draw artists. That's what you're going to have. Let's just say you do have the bad guy. The bad guy goes into the good school. And then the bad guy meets the good guy. Here's a drawdown. Who can draw first? You really want that? How dumb is that? Now listen, again. Just because you can't stop it doesn't mean you do nothing. The point is to lessen the possibility of it happening. That's why you pass laws. That's why you had gun laws. That's why they had the 1934 law that has been effective. And which is also why, ladies and gentlemen, I favor registering combat weapons, assault weapons. Those of us who have them, you go in, you register, and ultimately you have to have a license, and there's no confiscation. But if you do not, and you are in possession, then you can have a fine. And that's whether you use the weapon or not. In other words, the ban starts immediately on new weapons. By the way, did you hear that that the Valentine's Day terrorist had swastikas carved into his clips?
Makes sense. Seeing as how he was a part of a white nationalist group.
Did we have some caller that called in talking about this debunked or something like that?
That's been debunked, thoroughly debunked. Not sure where you get your facts, but that's been debunked.
You know, it's just so. It just says some of you guys who listen to oxyconservative talk Russian radio. Let me tell you something. You need to understand that you're being indoctrinated. We don't do that here. We don't do that. We do objectivity, and trust me on this. I don't answer to Democrats. I don't answer to repoops. Let me just tell you what I answer to. Common sense first and foremost, and the facts as we find them, and they are subject to change. And I'm open to that. I won't be blind by somehow or another how you feel or fear, which I think has fueled all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, the only reason why we have assault weapons is because we have some idiots out there who are scared. I don't see my weapons as somehow or another a comfort for me. I see them as a tool. Some people think just because you have a hammer, you got to look for a nail. I think President Barack Obama said that, and I think that's what happens with some people in firearms. Assault weapons or otherwise. And I'm not just talking about those who shoot up schools. I'm talking about those on the streets of Chicago and New Orleans. Those individuals who are taking pictures on Facebook showing the Glock. Yeah. Can't wait to use this. I mean, of course, what else is it used for? It's an anti-personnel device. Whether you like that or not. Well, I just like to get target practice. And typically the target practice that you're taking aim at is in the figure of a person. So that you'll be able to get at least 3 rounds center mass, and that's in the chest here, ladies and gentlemen. So what do you think? So the House bill is meandering, and there's a very great possibility in Mississippi it's going to pass. Here's what it does to me, now, if it does pass, and it could. You see, this is what has held my state down for so long. Now here you have Dick's Sporting Goods have just decided they're not going to sell any more assault rifles. Good idea. The momentum seems to be from Florida all the way to Washington, D.C., a lessening of more firearms. So now here we have some esteemed legislators looking to get some glory from national Republican handlers and the NRA. They put forward a bill that says, yes, we will allow them. Let's not, we're going to provide the school boards with this other tool whereby if they want to hire someone, well, they can already. But we just want, if they want to have someone undercover and someone with an enhanced license carry, you know, then concealed carry, then they can do it. We'll allow them to do it, and they won't even have to answer to law enforcement.
No.
So now here Mississippi's taking this position, and this becomes national news, folks, I'm going to tell you. They take that position. And then what happens? The momentum in the nation now is going towards some kind of control. We are seen as Yahoo, boneheads, conservative idiots who just don't want to change. You got me? In other words, what is the urgency of this? If you were a legislator, call me. I don't mind. I know that you're listening probably on our show there at WPBQ in Jackson. But what is the urgency? And I welcome your argument. There are resource officers in schools. Some schools actually have resource officers who are armed, some not armed. The key here is the control of who comes through that sole entrance into the school. That's the key. That's the key. It's got to be, you've got to have a sole interest. And actually, recently I was talking to superintendent of Gulfport City Schools, and they just recently built a new school, and their concern was about this exact thing, and that was the accessibility of the school from a lot of different sides. So the new Gulfport High has lessened the possibility of entryways. And they still don't have one. It has not gotten to the point where there's only one entryway. And when I say one entryway, I'm talking about entryway to the public, keyed entryway, or guarded entryway, one way or the other. But this to me is more about publicity from the conservatives, oxy-conservatives, who are basically wanting to goose-step and give the impression that Mississippi's on the front of this. Yes, we're real conservatives. We are so conservative that, look, we've already started this.
Ridiculous.
Without giving any kind of common sense to it. And you guys in law enforcement need to call them on it. You do. You need to call them on it, folks. We got our very own Whitlock hit the streets here yesterday just to get a feel from whether you, good God-fearing Mississippians, or some of the folks who are around, how they felt about the idea of arming teachers, principals, or the like. Here, take a listen.
No, I really don't. Because, first of all, who's to say the teacher is not trigger happy just because she thought she might have saw a guy and pull it out at the wrong time? So, actually, I think they should put alarms at the door, have a security guard there, and let that be. You know, I don't think it's necessary for a teacher to carry a gun.
No, I do not. Why? I don't think teachers should be armed because I do not believe half of the teachers have the mental capacity. Police officers go through extensive training and psych evaluations. So now you mean to tell me that the school system don't have enough money to pay for sanitizer, paper towels, pencils, you name crayons, not even books. You know, when we grew up, we could take our books home. Now you can't even take the books home.
All right, stop it right there. But did she finish that?
She had a
Yeah, let her go ahead and finish it.
Them with guns, with live ammo, who 9 times out of 10 doesn't have the mental capacity to even use a gun, then let a student take a gun from them, or when a student reach for something, they get shot. To me, Mississippi and the rest of the world need to just adopt and get with the program with having metal detectors when entering the school. All this.
Yeah, okay. Let me just say this, folks. And I appreciate that. We've got more response, and some pros, some against, and then we're going to play them all, I assure you. You know, there are some environments, and the schools is one, where safety is a must. And there's no doubt that we here in my great country want to make sure that every student goes there feels safe. We cannot guarantee that, ladies and gentlemen, or particularly, because there's a possibility that even someone firing a weapon outside of the school, a round could end up on the schoolyard. You do get that. Now, granted, that hasn't happened yet, and hopefully it won't happen. Excuse me. But there's nothing to say that some sniper can't be, like in the case of Nevada, sitting outside of a building, a taller building, taking pot shots at the schoolyard or in the cafeteria. Heaven forbid that happens. Now, let me just tell you where I'm headed with this. For me, this is about access to weapons, period. That's what it's about. Now, Folks, there's no doubt when there's no guns in the room, no one gets shot by people in the room. I said when there's no guns in the room, no one gets shot by people in the room. People in the room. Can they get shot from someone forcing in or coming in? Yeah. So that should tell you that the concern here and the position here is controlling the entryway, whereby individuals have to come in. I mean, that's why you have metal detectors in front of courthouses and so forth. And so, in my view, folks, the key for me is controlling the access to weapons of what I call mass destruction, and these are personnel carriers. I mean, for those of you who believe in the Second Amendment and it should be unfettered, then why not we all just have access to explosives, dynamite,
Grenades for everyone.
or for that matter, huge swaths of fertilizer, just unchecked. So I'm at a point now. Whereby the regulation is there. There's enough firearms. We have enough firearms out here. I feel safe. It's not a matter of confiscation. It is a matter now of control. If you want to control the borders, for instance, this is Donald Trump. You want to control the borders from Mexico, you got to build a wall. That means you ceased actually any kind of immigration for the most part. Well, if you want to get control of where firearms now is, then what you've got to do now is control the new manufacturing. You got to control it. And I think it's time for that. I do. Particularly as it applies to so-called assault weapons and semi-automatics, folks. I just think, we've reached a tipping point here whereby the access to those weapons is such that we can't really control who gets them and when they're going to go crazy. Should I say that again?
Yes.
You do realize that every criminal was once a law-abiding citizen. You do get that. He decides when he's going to do something criminally wrong, and you can sit there and say, "Oh, he has a problem. Like the terrorists there in Florida. You could talk about it forever ad nauseum. The reality is that unless you are in fact charged, unless you are arrested and charged, or charged and arrested, you can't be disarmed. It's going to tell you. And if you're charged with lunacy, that means that they're going to take you to the hospital, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, the way the laws are now, so those individuals, law enforcement officers, cannot just simply disarm someone. And they should. It used to be that they could do that, particularly if you did not have a registered firearm or if you were carrying a firearm, because it was against the law to carry a concealed weapon. You could be arrested for carrying a concealed weapon. Right? Actually, I think on your person, is it still that way in the state of Mississippi? I know it's not in the car. If you're not a licensed concealed carry, can you be arrested for that?
Not if you have your gun in a backpack or handbag or briefcase. You can legally conceal carry in those without a license.
Without a concealed carry
in
permit.
this state, yes, sir.
But now, of course, it's not against the law to just wear your firearm, be it AR-15.
Oh, we go heels around here.
Yeah.
Open carry.
Yeah, you can open carry, but it used to be a time when, ladies and gentlemen, there was a little bit more control of you, good God-fearing Americans, when if you carried a gun, and you had no concealed carry permit, then of course you could be arrested. So when I hear this, when I hear people, even like these legislators, put forward this whole concept, or Donald John, all you got to do is take the shot. And I've heard it. You're going to hear it here in a few minutes. See if you can play the one where the lady is explaining that, if someone had a gun there, then someone can shoot him. It's as if somehow or another we watch this movie and we automatically feel that the guy who has the gun is always going to win, or the guy who has the gun will only shoot the bad guy. Do you have it? If not, we can go through it. Because you got to hear this. The logic here, and I think it's being put forward by oxy-conservatives, and including our president. Oh, yeah, well, this is what you do. You go in, you take that shot. And anyone who's had a minimal amount of training understands that, taking that shot is the greatest decision and the greatest discretion that you can ever have. And that decision is based not just on the danger that you're facing, but the danger you put other people in by taking the shot. And that, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is what's not being said. What's being put forward is this concept of bravado that really, for those of us who have firearms, we know doesn't exist. In most cases, ladies and gentlemen, when you don't control time and when you don't control the environment, whatever you do, if it turns out good, it's by sheer luck. Which is why many individuals who find themselves in this situation don't like to look at themselves as being heroes. They look at themselves as being, man, the legs are shaking, the hands are shaking after they have actually prohibited or taken down someone, and it's like, whoa, I don't know how I lucked up with that. Again, if you do not control the time, and if you do not control the environment, the possibility of making a very tragic mistake on the part of the good guy is just increased 90%. It's one thing to be a sniper sitting somewhere and you're controlling the time, you're controlling the environment to which you will take that shot, and you're only dealing with the potential for getting one that approximately 9 by 9 size head. That's basically how wide the head is. Some of you have bigger heads than others. Better,
Yes, some of us do.
better to shoot too, easier. But what I'm saying is that you know. You guys got to come off of this John Wayne concept that's being put forward by oxyconservatism.
Yeah.
You just have to come off of it. This quick, because let me just tell you, the more of us who have guns, then it boils down to quick guns. Who can get it out the quickest and who has the better shot? And you'll find it more and more that things will be solved by dueling, and that's not the sign of a very civilized society, is my point, folks. All right. Yeah, we got it. I'm going to get you guys on the phone here. Did you find that? You did?
Here she is.
I'm going to go ahead and play it.
I agree with them being armed because of, the kids. The kids need protection, and it would be easier for a teacher to take out one kid that's shooting up everybody, take him out quick, than having him shoot up the whole school and, killing all these kids. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel.
Now listen to what she said. Now this is very ominous to me. And I'm going to chat with you about this in a little bit here, Whitlock. Very ominous. It is easier for her to take out a kid to keep him from shooting up other kids. Now, you go back and you look at the number of shootings that have happened inside of the schools going back to Columbine, and it's surprising to note that most of the assailants have, in fact, been students or former students or recently former students, like in the case of Florida. Sandy Hook had a few it was one exception to that as far as high school is concerned, but of course even that kid who was autistic had attended the school, and his mother still had some relations there with the school. But just imagine what she's saying here. So it's easier for the teacher to take out the student before others are killed. So what is it, a quick draw?
Yeah, right.
So the teacher has to then pull hers or his before the student
And take him out
and take him out.
quickly.
Well, not necessarily before. I guess in that regard, she was saying as the madness is happening, the teacher can then pull out their weapon and get the situation
So
under
once the
control.
gunfire starts, so in the midst of live fire, she's expecting a teacher to be able to draw, aim, and fire a lethal
and
shot at
take
the
the
student
child down.
quickly.
So you have
She
one
said,
death
she said
rather
take
than
him.
18.
She said take him out.
Yeah.
Well, one death over 18.
Yeah, and that's what does that sound reasonable to you?
At first, I was leaning towards what this lady said, but I don't think every teacher should have one. I think.
Are you making some assumptions that somehow or another that she won't get killed? Did you just make that assumption?
No, I'm not making the assumption that.
I think that's what happens.
It could go either or.
Well, you're exactly right. She said he could take it as a possibility, and so once the bullets
So
are
there's a
flying,
chance. Yeah.
well, there's a greater chance. I would say, here's this guy, especially if you have an AR-15, you've got a student there. But we're talking about shooting a child here first. First, we've got to determine whether, in fact, it is, in fact, that child, and whether he's the only one. Now, don't get me wrong,
That's a
folks.
good point.
Don't get me wrong here, folks. What I'm saying to you, the madness about this is having firearms there, period. And the idea that somehow or another there is this discussion about shooting a child.
But you made the comment earlier that this makes us have a society where it's uncivilized. With children shooting up 18 students is uncivilized. So what are you going to do?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation. He killed 18 people and had 180 rounds because he had an assault weapon.
So we already
His access.
uncivil case.
Well, I mean, the mark of a civilized society is its attempt to, at the very least, have some kind of moral fiber, and at least lessen the possibility that there will be those who would do wrong. I mean, you're civilized not because everyone is stoic. You're civilized because at the very least there is a concept of order. There is a concept of maintaining law and order. Well, you have laws, you're going to have criminality. Now, if you're saying that, okay, by saying that we're like, oh yeah, well, we're already uncivilized, so what the hell? Again, that's that kind of, well, it's already there. If you can't do everything, you do nothing. And that I think is not the sign of common sense in my view. In other words, did what happened there? In my view, the reason why the Valentine's Day terrorist was able to do what he did was because he had access to a weapon that could hold off an army. If he wanted to, he could have very well used those 180 rounds or so he had left with the swastika carved in them and taken out numerous others. He could have actually even had a bump stock. It was suggested that he, and I've heard, if not confirmed it, that he actually tried to knock out a window so that he would have a nice little perch, sniper's perch.
Oh, to fire outside the school like the resource officer thought he might be doing?
What I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, is there's a reason why you don't have access to a bazooka, or because it's the potential for mass murder. There's a reason why you can't go out and get an automatic weapon. It's because as early as, or should I say as late as 1934, the police were outgunned. These are human killers here, folks. These are tools for that. Now, the fact that boy, let's just say if he had access to only a 6-shooter, then needless to say, Woodlock, you would agree that the potential for 6 people could be killed. That lessens it, huh? Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, a 6-shooter, meaning...
Yeah, you only have six rounds.
Yeah,
Huh.
I agree.
In other words, the amount of rounds determine your capacity to do damage. You agree with this, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your ability to dispense those rounds, fire those rounds, adds to the possibility,
Yes.
right, that you can do more damage. The fact that it is a rifle makes your aim a heck of a lot better, your control, because you've got 2 hands, basically. You're able to control
Your accuracy
the muzzle.
also.
Oh, absolutely. And you got a long barrel, and it gives a more accuracy the longer the barrel on any weapon. So, folks, for those of you who are jumping up and down about this, arming teachers and the like, the point is that we have to, across the board, outside of the school, limit the access to certain kinds of weapons. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just simply means if you want this weapon, then you've got to qualify for this weapon. If you want this weapon and you want to keep this weapon, then you've got to license this weapon and maybe even have liability insurance on this weapon. It's your responsibility because it is far more lethal than an average weapon. That combined, in my view, with lessening the magazines on all new weapons purchased.
Yeah.
I think it's time. Now, what is that going to do for those of us who have extended magazines? It's just going to raise the value of our weapons, which is a good thing. In some cases, some will sell them at a premium, and I know that you'll still have that. But at the same token, the reality here is, for me, is that it starts like it did in 1934. It starts putting some controls and enhancements in ownership, meaning if by chance you have it, then you're subject to tougher penalties, as an imprisonment and the like. And I don't feel that that infringes at all on my Second Amendment rights. Not at all. Not at all. Right. All right, we're going to get to it. I know you guys on the phone. I'm going to get to all of you, I promise you. First, a few other things before we go into the break here. I'm going to tell you, Donald John has done it again. He's now tied in again, yet another connection to Russia. Instead of getting as far away from it as he can, the guy just hired Brad Parscale as his campaign manager. Who is he? This guy has already, been implicated with the Russians before this, even before now, folks. He was with Cambridge Analytica is actually what it is. That has become a major focus of both the House Intelligence Committee investigation into Russia meddling. Why? Because they were utilized. Now let me explain to you what Donald John just said to me by hiring this guy. Right? Not the only reason, but this is what he just said to me. He realizes that he can't win the presidency again without Russia, which is why he's not imposed the sanctions, which is why he has not directed his intelligence to stop the attack that's going on right now. He's not come up with a strategy. He's not asked him to come up with a strategy at all. No directions whatsoever from the president, and he hasn't even instituted the sanctions that Congress unanimously passed against Russia. This guy is Manchurian, and there are those of you who don't want to admit that. But if you don't want to admit it, you need to explain to me why he will now hire this guy. This guy, where is he? Paul Preskelly. Brad. I said Paul. Brad. This guy. You see this guy? Look at this guy. Guy with the beard. Now, if in fact he had a if he was a little darker, you would think he was one of the Taliban. By the way, did you see that the Afghans are now looking to do what I suggested being done in the first place, is consider the Taliban another political group?
Oh, like they did with some members of the Mujahideen.
Absolutely. Well, so at any rate, this guy, instead of, Donald John is like this. He realizes that he is indeed doo-doo. Here you have his own son-in-law now has been stripped of access to top-secret information, and it's about time, because he was only temporarily available to him. Not that he's going to forget the top-secret stuff he's seeing now.
Well, he kept forgetting all of his conversations that he didn't report when he was trying to get that top-secret.
This is the guy who owns 666 there in New York, his beleaguered building that he's had to borrow from the oligarchs. I mean, folks, this doesn't look good for us as a country. I know. We'll talk about that and a lot more. We'll be back.
It's about that time to get away. Make your reservations, pack your bags, and head on down to the coast, to the Almanac Hotel in